Homecoming in the Hive is upon us. The 2025 Homecoming and Alumni celebrations continue with another edition of Division III Women's Soccer on Schellenberger Field. It's a party in the parking lot outside Hopwood Hall, and it started early this morning at 11 a.m. The energy has been contagious into the afternoon, spilling onto the turf for a marquee ODAC matchup. The 9th-ranked WNL Generals enter the Hill City to face the hometown Lynchburg Hornets. All of it live on the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Network, and big thanks to you for tuning in here in the Hill City. Evan Gates and Kevin Nestor rocking with you, and Kyle Haney, because tell you what, Kyle Haney's making his first appearance with me on LHSN this year. We're so accustomed to having Kevin and Kyle. It's been a long time since we've called a game together.
That's an acceptable error for you there, Evan, because you and Nestor have been sounding great all season long. If you're Lynchburg and you want to spring this upset today, can't have too many errors against Washington and Lee, though, can you?
You can't. And tell you what, so glad to have you back in the booth, partner. And this is a matchup where you really want to see these two teams clash and have a competitive matchup, because WNL enters this one having conceded just one goal in ODAC play. They have been sensational. But, Kyle, as you see on your screen, the goals per game stat is right there as well. Their offense is proficient. Their defense is locked down. Not a lot to hate from the Generals crew.
No, they really play such a fantastic brand of soccer. They work hard for the 50-50 balls. They use that offense as their best defense as well. But again, even when that doesn't go well, the back line and the goalkeeping is phenomenal for Washington and Lee. They really are a very good outfit and a tough test today for the Lynchburg Hornets.
And tell you what, Washington and Lee has Coach Tiffany Penns, who has had 3 seasons and 3 NCAA appearances. But let's take a look at our players to watch for this contest. And Washington and Lee has the reigning ODAC Player of the Year, a first-team All-American, and Sarah Zimmerman, who, Kyle, you see on your screen, 5 goals and 3 assists already this year. She has 2 sisters on this squad that also lead the team in goals. It feels like it's a committee effort, but a very good one.
5'11" senior from Cincinnati, Ohio. I think the height is noteworthy there because she does use that to her advantage. Got the long legs. She's really got a nice burst as well for sort of a taller player. She is the complete package.
You can also find her on the hardwood for the Generals, a very good Washington and Lee basketball team. But enough about the opponents. Lynchburg wants to write their own story in this contest, and Loon Den Hartzog has been a big reason why they have succeeded this year. Wearing number 4 that belonged to Haley Casey last year in the center back position, she's emulated a lot of that success.
Got actually to talk to her when she was on her visit last year. Her brother was formerly a field hockey coach here as well. I assumed she was going to be a field hockey player, and Noah said, no, she's a soccer player. And then Coach Olson and Coach Deacon/Beasley, they informed me she's a darn good soccer player too. So that's a nice addition to this Hornet squad.
Kyle, I want to beg the question, because you come into this game understanding that Washington and Lee has absolutely dominated every opponent, 7-0 in the ODAC standings. This is a Lynchburg team that has had a few struggles in recent games. It goes back to that Code Red affair against Shenandoah, conceded in the 90th minute to lose 1-0. How do you have the energy and the confidence here in the first 10 minutes to make sure you belong in this matchup?
Well, answer that question in a moment, but I would add as well, Lynchburg is a team that has not won, folks, that you can show off for, a little extra boost, a little extra energy. But sure, I think you got to play hard really the entire 90 minutes. A fast start, I think, will be critical as well for Lynchburg. If they do want to spring, what you'd have to call an upset.
Tell you what, the last win for Lynchburg on Schellenberger Field was in September. They've only conceded 1 goal here on the home turf this entire season. And of course, it was that final minute goal from McKenna Newcomb, and Shenandoah gets the victory on Tuesday. Lynchburg and Washington and Lee, one of the matchups you always circle on your calendar. It happens on homecoming weekend here in the Hill City. Stay tuned on the Lynchburg Hornets Sports Network for First Touch as we get set in Lynchburg. The crowds have been out all day long in the parking lot at Hopwood Hall as the University of Lynchburg celebrates homecoming weekend. Lynchburg and WNL coming to your screen here on Schellenberger Field. And Kyle, we talk about the crowd being nice all day, but tell you what, the tailgates, it feels like there's always another face that you remember from the years past. So great to catch up with so many folks.
So many memories. You make some new memories out there. And, of course, I didn't want to go out there and partake in the tailgate, but I felt to be confident talking about it on the broadcast that I had to go out there. So I did that for you, Evan, and some great food options out there.
Oh, it's
fantastic. There's some fantastic food options out there. We got some people that can really cook on the alumni and current student side as well.
That's right. That's what they're learning in the educational experience.
Yeah.
And we have
real
90
world
minutes.
Skills, life skills.
That's right, the entire time. Now let's take a look at our tail of the tape between Lynchburg and Washington and Lee. And you got to look at the standings to really get a clear picture of how this season is going. Washington and Lee is 7-0. They have been unbeatable in conference play, allowing just one goal. Lynchburg has been toppled here in the last few weeks, trying to find their footing again. But 3-2-1, still a decent spot in 7th in the conference, and you feel like they have a lot of winnable matchups coming up.
It kind of, I think, shocks Lynchburg fans to see the Hornets that far down, and you see 5 teams in there with 4 wins, Macon with 5, Washington Lee with 7. Lynchburg is still a really good soccer team, Evan, but that standings right there shows you and speaks to the quality of the conference as a whole. You and I were talking about that pregame, not just women's soccer, but the ODAC is absolutely a force in nearly every sport.
Dr. Todd Olson, after that game against Shenandoah, when they blew the lead in the final minute, he was fired up, and he wants to go onto the field today with his 11 and put on the pressure to this Generals team that has just sailed through conference play. But their lineup has been one that has been consistent throughout the year, and it's also one that's very tough to beat. Headlined in goal by Kate McEnroe, who has really been the player to watch the entire year. She just continues to go up in so many of the standings D3-wise, and you look at the stats, but save percentage sticks out. She's inside the top 20 in so many departments, and you feel like, Kyle, not only do you have to get opportunities if you're Lynchburg, you also got to find the net, and getting it past McEnroe is going to be a tough task.
You really, and you kind of get into that debate. Do we want quality? Do we want quantity? Sure, you would love to have both, but sometimes Coach Todd Olson will talk about the value of let's make her face something early. You know, even if you don't have an outstanding elite look in the first 5 minutes, great to make that keeper work, make her just a bit uncomfortable.
We are underway in the Hill City, and WNL in the blue uniforms, Lynchburg the home whites, as the ball trickles over the touchline, and we are ready to go. The 3 Zimmerman sisters in this contest, a fantastic storyline. Megan Zimmerman, Sarah, and Elizabeth. They have all 3 scored at least 4 goals to begin the year for the Generals. They are involved in the attack. And then, of course, Lynchburg, known for the trademark back line, which, by the way, the Hornets have the exact same starting lineup as they did in that last affair against Shenandoah. The notable change was that Hannah Phillips starts out there instead of Madeline Boyce on the outside. Kate Shepard, of course, anchors the Hornets in goal.
Doesn't it seem like over the years we've seen Coach Olson really substitute the wingers liberally? It seems like when there is a change in the starting lineup or early subs, seems to often so much come from those wings. I think he values the speed and the fresh legs on the outside.
You really want to have a resurgence in the middle of the game as Morgan Oliver tries to go down Main Street. A late clearance will recalibrate the attack for Lynchburg. But that's an interesting point, Kyle, because we have seen speed be part of the blueprint for so long for Coach Olson's squads, especially out wide on the field. And so how does that factor into a game like this, where the Generals have been tested against so many tough teams? You almost got to catch them napping.
You do. You sometimes have to hope for a misplay by a single defender, and sometimes that's what the speed on the outside can give you. You play that deep ball to the corner, maybe it's a through ball, angular run. Those kinds of things will all be in play today for Lynchburg. And you know, you're probably going to have to win an aerial ball as well against a good defense like Washington and Lee, a ball where maybe a defender just slightly missed times. You can take advantage of that. Problem is Washington and Lee takes advantage of the same things when they have the ball as well.
They sure do. They have a lot of size as well that makes it a tough task as the ball rolls all the way over the goal line for a goal kick for Shepard. Let's introduce you to the starters for Lynchburg in this contest. Mentioned Kate Shepard, Lunden Hartog in the back line. As we've talked about, the cornerback, someone who is really involved. But the rest of the 11 are Morgan Oliver, Michaela Hargrove, Ava Olson, Zoe Villarreal, Hannah Phillips, Maddie Olson, Sammy Rogstad, Lauren Orner, and Ella Fulmer. Lots of freshmen involved in this committee effort by Lynchburg, but it's a defense that looks a lot like last year, even though it's a brand new bunch of faces, and that's really what you need if you're going to compete in the ODAC. Yes, you got to score goals, but more importantly, got to prevent the opponents from getting confidence early.
Love the continuity, though, as far as a system goes. And like you said, new faces, but it looks a lot the same. Sammy Rockstead was a big standout for me last year. And she's just a sophomore, but she almost brings a veteran experience now thanks to all the time she played last season.
Not afraid to get in the attack as Helen Otney tries to get involved. Sarah Zimmerman, maybe a late shove. Shepard on the goal line has to get the dive and executes successfully, but an early scare as Washington and Lee just creeped into the box.
Yeah, I think Shepard there maybe, you might even say a little bit conservative, stayed on the goal line for a long time. It looked like she might have had a chance to come out earlier, but she does wait to the last instance there, and a nice job to dive on that and prevent any damage by Shepard.
Perhaps Sarah Zimmerman got away with one in the box, or maybe Ava Olsen went down a little too easily. We'll have to wait and see how that battle fares as Sarah Zimmerman, the ODAC Player of the Year last year, first-team All-American selection, and we mentioned that her talents extend to the basketball court. How about that, Kyle? You think about two teams that are already difficult to play for because that's such a tough mix. You go straight from one season to another, but they're both nationally ranked.
Exactly right. I mean, it's phenomenal. It speaks to her athletic nature, and then also the balance. I mean, you got to be a college student as well. That is a lot on her plate, and it's really impressive when a player can do that.
Lynchburg is going to head over to the corner, and this is an area of the game that Coach Olsen has been very excited about this season. He feels like a lot of players have that physicality in the box to produce a little bit of goal scoring. We'll see if it happens this time. Few bodies out of the box, and the low cross sniffed out this time.
This is where if you're Lynchburg, you got to keep the pressure on, and sometimes you can catch the other team really rushing up, and then all of a sudden that defense is out of shape, and you re-attack and take advantage of that off the corner that initially did not look great for your side.
Morgan Oliver almost had the ball taken away. Now Lynchburg possesses in the midfield, which will be a big point of contention in this game. As Washington and Lee midfield can run all game long. They have ultimately passed the test of fitness in every single contest. They have several players like Lynchburg who have started every single match.
Like that little midfield interplay there by Lynchburg, though, Evan. Work the triangles, work your two-on-ones. They've ended up losing possession, but I think that kind of thing could bode well for the Hornets. You don't want to get super pass happy, but a great way to break down the defense and get some feel for yourself.
Isn't possession such a big key to this game as well? Because if Lynchburg wants to be in this fight and they want to make sure that this game stays tied or they take the lead early, you got to make sure you don't allow any quick attacks.
No doubt about it. Stay balanced. Yes, you can make a deep run here or there, but don't have a complete sellout and a bum rush on the other team's goal. Work your system, work your passing. I think you're absolutely right. Now, that's tricky, though, because you don't want to take away your team's aggressiveness either. So that's a fine line. That's a balance there for a coach and a player.
Such an important one, and it's fitting that a lot of the alums are back here on this homecoming Saturday because this Lynchburg team, as we talked about, graduated its entire back line last year, and several of them here in attendance as WNL tries to get the attack going, side netting it out. But tell you what, this is a back line that was almost joking with me earlier saying, you know what, we're glad we don't have to go out there and play this game because Washington and Lee is a tough opponent, but also it wears on you so much when you're playing 90 minutes and you're forced into action time and time again.
It does. You work so hard physically, you work so hard emotionally and mentally as well.
Corner entry from Washington and Lee, long cross sails to the other side and out. No problem, and Kate Shepard will have a goal kick.
Yeah, well marshaled there by the Lynchburg defense because that is a dangerous spot. That is a place where Washington and Lee likes to score like most good teams do, right? I mean, they take advantage of corner and set pieces. So that was well defended. And you might call it a nice little early small win for Lynchburg, who has, I don't know, possession battle. We can look at the stats here. I mean, what do you think? It feels close to 50-50 to me.
I think that corner early from Lynchburg, too, establishes the fact they can get into that attacking third. Sometimes you see teams that wait 15 or 20 minutes to even get that first opportunity.
Right. Now, excellent point by you. Watch out. More danger here, though.
Entry knocked away. Maddie Olsen tries to get it out to the side. And the problem the Washington and Lee poses is they have so many options, and it's proven by their assist number on the year. They are among the top 20 in the nation for assists per game, averaging 2.5. They have 35 assists on 38 goals, which is one of the more remarkable stats you'll see anywhere in the soccer climate.
It sure is, and it, again, speaks to their willingness to pass, willingness to share the ball, and then also willingness to execute the set pieces, as we were just talking about. I mean, you have to be really sharp in those to get a lot of assists. If you're just making a solo run, generally there's not going to be an assist.
This Lynchburg team has done well to rack up the assist in their department here in the last few weeks. And that's a stat that will be crucial against some of these tougher ODAC opponents. Perhaps the reason why there's been a struggle here in the last few weeks has just been due to the finishing abilities. Lynchburg has created chances, but haven't had that late pass to get by their opponents. 11 of the Hornets' last 16 goals have been assisted, so a trend that's in the right direction, and they'll need it today as we're scoreless through the first 9 or so minutes here on Schellenberger Field. Lynchburg and Washington and Lee.
Generals trying for a little bit more of a composed build-up here, a lot of passing in the defensive third. Now here comes the long ball and actually hit one of the midfielders, and it could be a chance for Lynchburg to take over. I think for the Hornets, when you see a team do that, everybody's got a version of a high press, but how quickly do you get into that when you see the other team using the keeper and using the back three defenders and just kind of passing sideline to sideline? Sometimes it can be tough to press that if you're not necessarily ready for it or it hasn't been a key element of your game plan.
See the Generals trying to get in quickly. Here comes the cross, and Sammy Rogstad, who we mentioned earlier, doesn't have a problem this time, and now you start to see that attack. What becomes so difficult against the Generals is the fact that your defense is ultimately tracked all the way back to the defensive third.
And I love that about Rogstad, because she is a true goal-to-goal player, generally stays in the middle, but she doesn't mind going sideline to sideline either. She's a real effort kind of a player, and the football IQ seems to be very high for her. Again, she's just a sophomore.
Sophomore out of Aldie, Virginia, 4 assists on the year. She started every match. And you're looking at a second-team All-ODAC selection in her freshman campaign. So you feel like the expectations are sky high.
So here's a chance. Center back for Washington and Lee makes a longer run up, but she's going to get back in time. It was Bryn Bissinger. And so there's some moments right there. Now all of a sudden counterattack from the Generals.
Here's Sarah Zimmerman, ODAC Player of the Year, ready to fire. She gets it off, but a bounce, and it's lazy into the gloves of Shepard.
But as Lynchburg midfielders, you see the other teams, really any defender, but certainly that center back, you see her vacate. That kind of has to put you on alert to say, hey, when we get this ball back, we need to go quickly. We need to try to go transition fast.
The problem is, we talk about this Washington and Lee offense. Someone like Bryn Bissinger is an All-ODAC selection herself, and by the way, a third-team All-American. So you think about how this defense bends and molds throughout the game. Well, you got to start with trusting one another, and the reason the Washington and Lee is having this success under Coach Tiffany Penns is because so many of their players have come back year after year. It was a young squad that has found their footing.
Yeah, and Coach Penns, you got a player like that. You give her the leeway. If she wants to make a run and get it in on the offense occasionally, you're going to be okay with that.
She has been so good an ODAC play. Here comes the shot that just goes over the crossbar at left foot. And we've seen Lynchburg test from outside the 18-yard box. General's not afraid to do so either.
Yeah, I think that was Megan Zimmerman, correct? Megan is 6, Sarah is 8, and Elizabeth Zimmerman is 20.
That's right. And they're all even numbers. They kind of look alike when you're out there on the field.
Well, when you got this low sunlight here at Shelley like we have now in mid-October, that 6 looks a lot like an 8. But that was the number 6, Megan Zimmerman, that tried the shot. I like it. Powerful left foot there. And I like the miss as well. Let's go high off the crossbar. If we miss out of bounds, we'll set up our counterattack or whatever. I think that was a nice look for her.
Trying to test the waters. I mean, how do you think it makes your parents feel when you got 3 players on the same team for a nationally ranked squad?
I guarantee you the parents are athletic. I mean, I would be willing to bet a lot of my paycheck. You got a stat.
You got that one right.
Uh-huh.
So their mother, Mary, played soccer and basketball at Cornell. And, you think about the correlation, soccer and basketball, for a pair of the sisters. And I mean, it does go through the family. I just wish I would have been okay at 1. That's all we could ask.
Well, they got adult leagues.
That's right. Washington and Lee pressing forward. They have options as they go out wide. A late pass opportunity from Barry Parrish Green. It's taken away, and this is where Lynchburg can try to get forward. Maddie Olson just heckling defensively. Now the pass goes in. Lauren Orner does better to get there first.
Yeah, Maddie Olson's another one that's always going to be around the ball. And I don't know, it's almost cliche to call her a coach on the field because if you don't know, she is Dr. Todd Olson's daughter. But, I mean, she does kind of act in that capacity as well.
She has been there in every spot as Shepard watches this one. Range wide right. Another corner for the Generals. And by the way, if you're just tuning in for the Lynchburg women's soccer season, no relation between Ava Olson and Maddie Olson. A different spelling as well. But Dr. Todd Olson has been so successful throughout his Lynchburg tenure, 513 wins, and the next win will place him 9th on the all-time women's soccer list as he will pass Becky Burley. Corner in the air, line drive straight to the middle of the box and ushers out to the left. Dangerous territory, and W&L will flip sides.
Had some great interactions with Dr. Todd Olson this week for our Lynchburg Hall of Fame ceremonies, honoring the national championship team, and then a couple individual players as well, Angela Bosco, Desi Dupuis. Always so much fun. Anytime you can talk to Dr. Todd, you're going to learn something. I mean, you just by osmosis feel like you're getting smarter about the game or life or something when he opens his mouth.
No doubt. Those are the great coaches, especially at the D3 landscape, where they have been around so many athletes through the years. You look at these rosters traditionally being bigger than some of those Division I clubs, and this Lynchburg team that won the national championship in 2014 has so much tradition. And this team really, unlike any other on campus in the sense that so many of the traditions from back when Coach Olson began are still around now.
I think that's been such an important piece, and that was the first team to win a national championship in school history here at Lynchburg. So nothing like the first, and they did it, and you said it, the traditions continue. And so many of those traditions were even before that team as well, and that was just a kind of a culmination and obviously a place that all the teams want to get back to, and Coach Olson himself wants to get back to. He hasn't made a secret about that. He's got high hopes and expectations.
And this team, being a younger squad, understands what it takes. As the pass is low into the box, this could be dangerous. Generals outside, and Zimmerman skies this attempt. And Kyle, you don't want to turn this into a history lesson, but you do got to point out the fact that, you know, we talked to Coach Beasley before this game, and something that you look at from so many of the programs around Lynchburg is the fact that it's almost becoming an expectation to get to that NCAA tournament, and that baseball team that won a national title was the latest example, the fact that it doesn't feel like it's a foreign land anymore.
No, and I think that is one great thing about being at a small school. Other teams can influence other sports in that way. If you're at a big Division I don't know that happens quite as much. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I don't think it does, whereas here, you're on campus with these people. You're in class with these people, and that passion and energy can drive you and motivate you. And like you said, you see another team do it, and you say, well, why couldn't we do that? And it's been happening and could continue to happen as well. I mean, Lynchburg FloSports has just really been dynamite across the board as far as all of our teams this year.
And it's evidenced by the fact we've seen 3 games on Schellenberger Field today. They're not separate facilities as this chance scurries to the left, and it's out for a goal kick.
And don't leave Washington and Lee out of that as well. They have a really same kind of thing with their sporting culture up there in Lexington. I mean, you got to think the Generals are good in just about everything. I mean, name a sport that they're not competitive in. It's phenomenal. I think we got our first substitute of the game. Evan looked like number 17, Riley Wampler.
She is someone who traditionally will come into that midfield role and get a lot of minutes at this time of the game. Madeline Boyce will be another substitute to expect, but the more minutes you get, especially with a crew that is younger, you feel like the role in the next few years is only going to expand.
I was talking about early subs for wingers, but you're right, sub in the middle there. It seems like based on what I'm taking from your context clues, you felt that was pretty predictable. substitution pattern there.
Well, what's interesting from this Lynchburg team, too, you look at the wings, and you do expect those players to be a little more tired later in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But Morgan Oliver is someone who leads this team in goals at 8, and she has been playing outside this year. You look back at last year, she was a little bit more in the middle, and you just feel like Coach Olson is catering to the fitness and the playing style of so many of these athletes, and he's done it pretty well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, too, because I think all those good players can go inside, outside, right? But you need to have a general theme or a structure to your offense there. And interesting with her going outside a little bit more there, what options that opens up for you and opportunities for other players as well.
This Lynchburg offense would like to find some action early in this game as we have 27 minutes to go in the first half. All 6 shots belong to Washington and Lee. It's been a quiet 6. Haven't necessarily seen a scary threat, but as this game goes on, one would predict they will only continue to be more menacing. This is a general squad that has found so much success this year. 11-2-1 coming into this contest. As we mentioned, a perfect 7-0 in ODAC play. And just for reference, they swept the ODAC awards last year. Sarah Zimmerman was Player of the Year, Bryn Bissinger Defensive Player of the Year, and Megan Zimmerman Rookie of the Year.
It was Morgan Oliver, who we were just discussing, kind of putting some pressure in the corner. That's one place where a player that has been in the middle of the field mainly can excel down there in those corners. Sometimes, no offense to those wingers, but sometimes they're not the most physical players, where if you're used to playing in the middle banging around, you might like to go down there and have a little contact in the corner.
That's part of the blueprint as Hannah Phillips almost sneaked right into the box. As there's a late challenge in the middle of the field. The referee will show a yellow card. It looked like it was Riley Wampler. We'll get a second look, but that is our first card of the game, and you feel like Lynchburg's physicality is going to be on display if they want to stay tight in this one.
Yeah, and really I think our first whistle of the game as far as any kind of a foul, unless I'm leaving one out. Not that it hasn't been a physical game. I think that speaks to the good officiating. Crews really letting them go out there and making sure everything stays by the – not getting crazy physical, getting crazy rough. I think it's been a nice game, nicely officiated so far.
We've seen some back and forth, primarily the Generals offense coming into a big spot, and they will try to continue to find that first goal of the game. Lynchburg's defense has done well so far. So you see Morgan Oliver was taken down, a little bit of that physicality we've seen throughout the game, and as you said, Kyle, a lot of it happening right in the midfield.
Mm-hmm. It seems like that's where primarily the game has unfolded, other than, as you said, the 6 shots for Washington and Lee. They have been in their attacking third quite a bit. I think we would have to say the least action has been in the Lynchburg attacking third. But it does seem like the Hornets are starting to get a little bit of traction, doesn't it? A little bit more ball dominance, a little bit more control. Just as far as the field position game for Lynchburg, I sense that here, and I think if you're Lynchburg, you have to sense that, try to put the foot down on that accelerator a bit more.
This first half is so crucial as well. You want to make sure it's at least scoreless, not giving up a goal to Washington and Lee to where their entire halftime huddle conversation is about defense.
Exactly right. If you're Lynchburg, if you could get a goal, if you could get a 1-0 advantage, how massive would that be? Because then all of a sudden you can start playing around with some things. You can play around with your formation and your personnel changes and choices there.
Pass goes out wide. We'll see if the Generals are back into action. Megan Zimmerman now trying to get the entry to her sister, Sarah. Lots of patience from Washington and Lee. Here comes the pass. Sammy Rogstad escorts it all the way out, and it'll be another goal kick.
Yeah, fantastic idea there from Zimmerman, looking for, I believe, Elizabeth Perry down that near right sideline. Touch was just a bit too firm, but if that pass is on target, all of a sudden Lynchburg really is on the back foot. So that's, again, back to how good Zimmerman is. Yes, she scores, but she understands all the elements. She understands the assist. She understands the pass before the pass concept, those kinds of things. Really a great player, fun to watch.
Kate Shepard lofts it into the midfield. All 3 Zimmermans have been impactful this year, and we've talked about it, how they have combined for 14 goals to start this year. Sarah and Megan lead the team with 5 apiece, and that really goes to show that this has been a committee effort offensively. You look back to last year where this team was 22-1. Well, Sophie Berman was the player who led this team in goals, and she hasn't played a single game this year. Still on the roster as a senior, a forward from Robbinsville, New Jersey, but perhaps an injury has kept her out the entire season, and this team hasn't missed a beat.
They really haven't. Substitute for Washington and Lee looked to be number 2, Aubrey Dunbar, midfield forward combo, sophomore from Bradenton, Florida, entering the game. Avery Hanna exiting for Washington and Lee.
Madeline Boyce also came in for Lynchburg in the last couple of moments, and she could be in a big spot as Morgan Oliver moves forward. This time, the Generals get the upper hand. Rogstad now moving forward, and look at that anticipation to keep it in. All doors closing as the Generals defense presses forward.
Really good from Rogstad, though, and that's one thing you and I talked about in the game last year. You have to win the first 50-50 ball, then you have to win the second one, because generally when you win one of those 50-50 balls, the touch is not great, so you have to go get that ball again, and a lot of times it's a second player, and this time it was Sammy Rogstad just going and getting it herself. Really impressive sequence there for her.
Moondin Hartog had to be careful. Last person standing at first, and now Washington and Lee has a chance. Zimmerman advances it forward. The Lynchburg defense starting to move backwards. Now space for the cross. Bounces in, but Rogstad clears it again.
She is always around the ball, isn't she?
You mentioned IQ earlier, and I think that's a great way to phrase it with Sammy Rogstad. Just time and place always seems to be on point.
And then the timing as well beyond that. Wow.
Great evidence, and now green turf ahead.
Make the announcer look good right there, huh?
That's right. Rogstad does everything as Oliver goes outside. Isolation hasn't had many opportunities in this capacity yet. Better defense that time from Elizabeth Perry.
Yeah, Perry's in a good spot right there. Look how she kind of sinks the hips a little bit, gets a little bit lower, able to move. Those great defenders talk about trying to kind of keep an eye on the midsection of the offensive player, but then also you have to keep a little bit of an eye on the ball as well. That was impressive.
Almost always, too. It feels like if the offense gets forward, it ends up being a corner off a deflection. And somehow the Generals bring it to the wider margins where it ends up being a throw.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's impressive by Perry, and I like that run she made offensively earlier, but clearly nice individual defender for the Generals as well.
Morgan Oliver again gets space. Off to her junior counterpart, Lauren Orner. Looking for options, and that time a tap from Elizabeth Zimmerman, or in the Generals' possession. Sneaks into the middle of the field. Got to watch out now as there are a lot of blue shirts moving forward. Madeline Boyce pressed outside, and Ella Fulmer gets the clearance for the moment. W&L on the prowl. Pass to the middle. Zimmerman ready to fire an extra tap. Left foot and in. A beautifully stricken shot for the first goal of the game, and the Generals use a little bit of poetry in the midfield to go up a tally.
Well, you saw it. You said on the prowl. You could see Washington Lee pressing up. Watch that touch there. Roll over the top of the ball with the right foot. Time to step into it, and then perfect placement in the goal. I don't think Kate Shepard was in a bad spot at all for Lynchburg. That shot was just absolutely precision.
Sarah and Megan Zimmerman had 5 goals apiece on the year. Elizabeth said, yes, let me join the party. She's now at 5 on the season. Washington and Lee is up 1-0. That extra tap was just clinical, and you feel like you can't even tell if she's right or left-footed after a strike like that.
No, you really can't. I mean, she is so ambidextrous in that way, and that rollover, step-over move. All the great finishers have that because you move the ball and still keep it on the ground. When you hit the equator of the ball, you get under the ball, sometimes it pops up, and your strike on the shot is not quite as clean. So you get the cleats on top and rake over the top of it to move the ball away from the defender. It just gives you so much room, and the ball is still moving too, so a little extra oomph on that shot.
Lynchburg trying to strike back now. Beautiful through ball. Michaela Hargrove moving into the area code. Lets this one go out. And maybe a smart move by the freshman getting that corner because Lynchburg's been so well in that department.
It was going to be a tough angle. I wonder how much Hargrove thought about, can I go one touch and try to bang to the far corner there? You probably don't want to go near post on that shot, but if you go far post, maybe you get a deflection and the keeper tips it back in. But this is just as well for Lynchburg. Important spot.
Here it comes lofted out towards the far post. Wampler lost sight of it. Now Orner on the far side as it rolls out. Whose possession is it? Lynchburg has a throw.
If you're Lynchburg, I think you do want to fight hard here with the awareness that you don't want to get counterattacked by Washington and Lee by completely selling out. You see, actually, because it's the throw, a couple defenders for the Hornets backing up just a few steps.
And this time it goes over the goal line again for a corner. Kyle, the big question for Lynchburg, even in their losses, they haven't necessarily trailed for a large portion of the game. Of course, the Emory game, a 6-1 defeat, is a little bit of an anomaly, but you lose in a 90th minute strike last time out. You feel like this team has to learn to try to go through adversity.
I think so. I think that's part of the growth for any good team.
This time it goes all the way out over the top of the box. Generals looking to go the other way, and how about the defense that time? Aubrey Dunbar absolutely denied.
A beautiful dispossession there, and this is where if you're Lynchburg, you can kind of counterattack Washington and Lee's counterattack, if that makes sense. Now, play might get a bit more settled here in the midfield. I think you still got some chances if you're Lynchburg and right on cue.
Michaela Hargrove tries to find the way forward. And all the way over the far touchline. So back to the point, Kyle. I mean, you think about this team trying to come back. They haven't trailed for a large portion of this year. What is the main ingredient to making sure this game remains where it's at?
Well, it's a great question by you. I think if you can play the game like it's 0-0, there's some real value in that. A lot of times what happens so much is you change your style and you kind of almost go into a subtle panic mode when you fall down, when you have not trailed very much. So I think maybe just stick to your brand of soccer. If you're Lynchburg, it's probably cliche. I don't know, though. There's a lot of reasons why things become cliche because they're true. You know, they work. So maybe that is the secret to success when playing from behind.
And just to paint the picture, in the first 5 ODAC games for Lynchburg, they outscored their opponents 17-2. So they were dominating in those wins. And even in that tie versus Virginia Wesleyan, where no goals were scored in 90 minutes, you just got the sense that Lynchburg had a little bit of an upper hand, even if they were behind in the shots column, even if some of those stats were leaning the other way. The Hornets had a lot of confidence.
Confidence is so big in any sport, but I think especially in soccer when you do have some long stretches where you might have to play from behind. You'll go 50 or 60 minutes without getting a shot or getting in the other team's defensive zone, so you do have to maintain that confidence, and that can not always be easy.
This time far side, Maren Brown offers the pass that goes all the way towards the goal line. Dunbar couldn't catch up. Goal kick, Lynchburg. This is a part of the game where it definitely tests you in every way, and this Hornets team understands how to move forward, how to be resilient. They've done it throughout the year, but when you look at those 3 losses so far, all of them in very different fashion. The Emory 6-1 defeat, you felt like Emory got out early and never looked back. Against Randolph-Macon, the Hornets actually had the lead. They were up 1-0, and then the Yellow Jackets scored 2 unanswered. And then Shenandoah, of course, the late strike that is definitely a heartbreaking game when you look at how that result fares, but you do understand that this Lynchburg team is still in the fight, even if they're 7th in the conference. A little bit of extra contact, middle of the field, and good work from Villarreal on the far side to send the ball forwards. Hargrove trying to get forward, and really one of the first kicks we've seen from goalkeeper Kate McEnroe. She was tested early, but a little bit more Generals offense here in the last 10 minutes. Still moving forward. Here's the shot. Tries to go upper 90 and missed, but not by much. Sarah Zimmerman again.
Always dangerous, and I think that's one, too. You saw Lynchburg, pretty good spot defensively, but she kind of gets a touch right off the defender's shin guards and manages just to kind of play right through it. That's, again, her size, I think, is such a big component in that. She can be a physically imposing player to a defender.
really difficult when you're trying to find out all the logistics of how to solve that puzzle, because Sarah Zimmerman does so many things well on the field. This team's 35 assists obviously show that they are very versatile and they weave together well. Rogstad, quick throw into Warner. Coach Penn's wanted a handball.
It was awfully close. I think, again, that speaks to the officiating. If you're not exactly sure, let's just play on. Don't disturb the flow of the game. I think, again, officiating has been really good on that level. This game has had a nice flow.
Here's Wampler. She has space, ready to fire outside the 18, and McEnroe just punched it over. That's why she is saving 92% of the shots that she's faced, and Wampler didn't miss by much.
I think sighted it well there and then timing up that jump. That was nice from Wampler. That's got to be a confidence builder for her and for Lynchburg. Again, how much pressure can the Hornets keep on here? See what kind of corner setup they run. Big bunch right here, just left of center.
McEnroe 6th and D3 for save percentage. Wampler almost made that go down as Warner gets the header. It goes all the way over the net, but the problem is it's the wrong one. Out onto the track and a goal kick for Washington and Lee.
I think we're seeing some fruitful opportunities for Lynchburg as the Generals will make another sub. Stephanie Zaktaki, junior from also seeing why Washington and Lee has only yielded one conference goal so far this year, Evan. They are really buttoned up back there.
Well, isn't it fitting that Riley Wampler is the one who gets that chance, a substitute in this game? We've talked about trying to bring extra energy at the right times, and that's one of those opportunities, right place, right time for sure. But Coach Olson trusts so many of his midfielders in that spot.
I think trust is a good word there. You know, we don't want to force you to say you can't shoot from this far out or these angles. You have to have some trust there. You have to let your players express themselves. And if you think you got a shot to make one, even if it's from deep like that from Wampler, let's take a rip. And in that case, it really, I mean, you can say it worked out. It led to a corner, right?
Lynchburg has, in the last 5 or so minutes, really worked into their attacking third. Produce some good opportunities as Emily Burke goes onto the field, replacing number 20 Elizabeth Zimmerman, who, if you're just tuning in, has the goal that would be the presumptive game winner as it stands. Generals up 1-0 on homecoming Saturday here in the Hill City. Festivities wrapping up in the parking lot, but a great day, a long day here on Schellenberger Field as the first 2 games go away. The Hornets field hockey contest between Lynchburg and Bridgewater. They get it done 7-1, a dominant display. And then the men's soccer team handling business against EMU.
Right call there. It was going to be a fantastic turn. And I think if you're Washington and Lee, you maybe don't even hate the physical defense because that could have been very dangerous if Lynchburg can get the turn there and immediately start attacking. But still some danger for the Hornets. Let's see if they can execute.
Lunden Hartzog and a set-piece opportunity. She wants to place the ball and go out wide to Rogstad, who's still on the run, crosses low. Top of the box, and the Generals might be off and running themselves. Den Hartzog all the way back and misplayed this pass. Villarreal now hauls to try and get away from Dunbar and does so successfully.
Yeah, not sharp there from Lynchburg. Not sharp really off the free kick, and I think that kind of started the chain of events that we could argue hasn't ended yet as Washington and Lee now with some field position and a chance to build up in their attacking third.
$9:50 to play in the first half, and this Lynchburg team's starting to gain some momentum. Washington and Lee has now really found those openings, and they've gotten opportunities. They don't need much time to materialize as Stephanie Zaktaki goes all the way other side of the box, got a foot on it, but ushered out. Sarah Zimmerman was right there on the doorstep.
That, again, not sharp enough for Lynchburg, especially against a great team like Washington and Lee. Now, they got it cleared. So you avoid some danger there, but that's going to be a moment that's not going to make Coach Olson super happy. Let's see if Lynchburg can really buckle down here. Less than 10 to play in the half. Sometimes it's nice to break up the game in those sequences. You can tell yourself, hey, I've only got to fight hard for 9 more minutes here. Let's just be really, really sharp for the next 9 minutes.
One extra factor that will go to Lynchburg's advantage in the second half. They will be moving left to right, and the sun definitely poses problems for a game like this where you have a 5 o'clock start time. We'll set over Turner Gymnasium on the left side. And, you don't want to chalk up a lot of opportunities to the sun or the shadows in a game like soccer where it might not be as impacted, but does feel like the toughest part of the day.
No, I agree, and I think it's a point worthwhile. We used to see in our game goalkeepers wear hats a lot more. We've seen it occasionally here at Shelley, but not much. I mean, it's something that I think if I was a coach, I would encourage my keeper, hey, just have a hat in the bag just in case. You don't necessarily have to start the game with the hat on, but just in case you get a sunny day. I mean, I guess sunglasses could be an option that could, argue would be helpful perhaps.
And it sounds crazy when you haven't seen it in mainstream soccer, but you
Right.
think about keeping your water bottle by the net. You see the goalkeeper traditionally has a little package as he or she is ready for the game, and that's an opportunity to try and take advantage. Obviously, you can't necessarily go spark those new inventions and innovations until you do it yourself.
Sure. Well, I know from years gone by that it's within the rules to wear the hat. So, again, if it's an option, maybe it's an option to explore, especially at a place like Lynchburg where I'm folks can see on the screen. I mean, you can see the difference between the light in the shadows and then the sunlight. I mean, it's noteworthy. It really is noteworthy.
Everybody faces it in the crowd and in the broadcast booth, trying to keep it as transparent as possible. As Warner was chasing this one, gives up momentarily. Amelia Mankey, someone who we haven't talked about yet, but has had a very successful season. Now 15 starts on the year, second team All-ODAC selection. Also played field hockey and ran cross country in high school, and a lot of these generals are very well-rounded in their high school backgrounds.
I was having that conversation today at the homecoming, actually, just about how many of the great athletes are multi-sport athletes growing up, and there is such a push to specialize now, and I think if you talk to a lot of the great ones, they'll tell you don't specialize. Play as much as you can, as often as you can, and then you can specialize later on, maybe in college or something like that.
In the day of social media, too, it doesn't necessarily pay to go and do multiple sports because so many media accounts and teams that are looking for interest, they want you to do one. They want you to focus on getting better at that sport. But like you said, I feel like in the past, and even here at the Division III landscape, you see so many players who can tap into those other abilities. Really helps things out. Look no further than someone we saw at Midnight Madness, Jamarcus Brown, on the men's basketball team. He also high jumps and might have an NCAA title in a few years. As the cross goes over the frame, this time it's taken away, and Lynchburg has a throw.
I like this sequence here from Lynchburg. We were talking about athleticism, a chance to use it. Lynchburg's going to sub Tegan Casey in the ball game. Here's some fresh legs. Or was it Katie Paulette? Was it 5 or 6? Again, that light.
That's right,
that
Tegan
light.
Casey.
Okay, so I should have trusted myself. It was number 5, Tegan Casey.
You're just being humble, that's all.
Yeah, Michaela Hargrove comes out. I hope we see Michaela Hargrove in the second half so we can talk about her rise as a first year a bit more. I think we will. I believe in your notes there, Evan, you had that Hargrove had played the most minutes for any Lynchburg player over the last 3 matches, if I read that note right.
Well, actually, if you look at Hargrove's stat line, it's the last 3 matches she's played the most of her season. And
Okay.
What's interesting is you're seeing that for a lot of players. These are the games in the ODAC, as this one skies over the crossbar. You're starting to see this is the time where, whether the coaching staff verbally acknowledges it or not, this is crunch time. And you're seeing a lot of these tougher games where Lynchburg wants to be in the fight. While they've lost a few, they feel like that vision here for the next couple of weeks is really important.
Sure, and you've had the early season. You've had August and September to build that fitness and build to this. And, of course, coaches like Coach Olson and his staff, they've got their finger on that pulse. They know where everybody's fitness is. And so you're right, this is the time of the year. You might have to turn it up. Speaking of turn it up, here we go.
Here's Tegan Casey, left foot, and McEnroe gets both gloves on it. That was another golden opportunity, and the Hornets just breaking away at the right times.
Once again, McEnroe, fantastic save. Casey opting to go near post there, or perhaps with the ball, that's the only place she felt she could get a good strike on it. A lot of value in trying to go to the far post there. But again, because of the chasing defender and the bouncing ball, she just may not have been able to get the foot to send it to the far corner.
Kyle, it feels difficult for Lynchburg having to experience the trouble in finishing in the last few games because you're not going to get many opportunities against Washington and Lee. But in the chances they've had today, they've looked pretty menacing, and they've got a chance to go up and tie it.
Menace, very good word there. And I think, the other great word, we'll hold that thought for a second.
Shepard able to corral, and once again, a lot of generals in the area code in the box.
The other great word that you hear talking about strikers and finishers is clinical, right? They just seem to know, again, when do I need to go near post? When do I need to go far post? When do I need to settle that and maybe take another dribble? When do I need to think about dropping off to a trailing teammate? Those kinds of things. I think for those clinical strikers, those moments really slowed down for them. They hear that from the great ones. Like, it actually slowed down for me, whereas for us mortals, you and me, the game really speeds up when you have that chance right there.
Especially in your mind, you feel like so much is happening as Oliver goes out wide and earns a corner. And you're talking about clinical offense. Well, Elizabeth Zimmerman, who scored the only goal of the game, that's exactly what she did. At an extra tap, opened up space, and fired a shot just inside the 18-yard box. Here's a corner from Lauren Orner. Hand down, ball in the air. Traveling to the far side and nobody home. Washington and Lee looking for the escape route, and they will just send it over the touchline.
I do love the height on those corners. I think that's a very nice weapon for Lynchburg, and you see some teams don't try to go for that high floating corner because they just don't feel like their players might be accurate with that. But Lynchburg has several players who can get some height on that corner and really just kind of lob it in there.
This has been a season, as we touched on earlier in the broadcast. It feels like it's a little different for this Lynchburg team in corners, as Coach Olson has talked about players who can really go in the box and use that physicality, try to use those headers. Somebody like Ella Fulmer is one that reminded him of that, reminds him of Alex Allen. Of course, talking about Coach Olson reflecting on a lot of the alums, and rightfully so here on homecoming weekend.
I do think during homecoming and our Hall of Fame ceremonies earlier this week, you do start thinking about those players gone by a little bit more, don't you? And it kind of becomes easy to compare profiles and skill sets and those kinds of things when you've had a player that does something similar.
Well, talking to Haley Casey earlier today, who wore number 4 for Lynchburg. We also got to see Claire Lloyd, Laura Grahowski, that entire back line. And what's interesting is, between Grakowski, Lloyd, and Casey, they were there from freshman year on that back line. And a lot of those numbers, they start to mean something when it's been a few years in a row. That's what this team wants to do this year. The Hornets have several newcomers, as Fulmer has to go backwards. Dangerous spot, but Emily Burt can't catch up.
Very dangerous there from Fulmer. Sometimes, again, as you and I know, you opt to bring the keeper in on that and just play it straight back, but it worked out trying to get it over there to the far side touchline. Now Lynchburg's going to have to still work to remove it from this end of the field.
Gotta wonder if that last-second goal is lingering in their head from last time. Don't want it to happen again. Zimmerman takes a shot, and Shepard able to chest it up this time. 20 ticks remain, and that should be the end of the first half.
Smart save from Kate Shepard in the fact that she knew there was nobody there, so a short rebound would not be the worst thing in the world. She knew she didn't have to grab it. Completely clean, so good savvy there.
Through 45 minutes, the Generals have the advantage, but Lynchburg playing with poise. You got to like it if you're a Hornets fan. It's only a 1-0 deficit so far. Two strong teams in the ODAC going at it on homecoming Saturday. We'll be back on the other side with some halftime stats and analysis as you see some of the highlights on your screen. A physical first half, and the goal belongs to the Generals, but Lynchburg still right there in the fight. Time to write Chapter 2 in the Hill City. Lynchburg and Washington and Lee doing battle in this ODAC women's soccer affair. But right now, the Generals have the upper hand, 1-0 advantage as we take a look at our halftime stats. Kyle, 9 shots for the Generals, but you and I discussed in the break, it feels like Lynchburg's 2 chances have both been very close to finding the back of the net.
I think they've been quality chances, Evan, and I think Lynchburg's chances will continue to need to be quality because, again, we've talked about this defense for Washington and Lee. You're really not going to sneak many into the twine on chances that aren't high quality. Goal number 5 of the season for Elizabeth Zimmerman. I might have said it was a different Zimmerman. I think everybody can understand why, because all 3 sisters are very, very good, and we're seeing that firsthand. And I think, again, Washington and Lee, as good as advertised, but beatable, I think, don't you?
I agree, and I think that this team has not proven otherwise yet. They haven't been beaten.
Right.
But this Lynchburg team is showing that there are openings, and they got to bring the firepower here in the second 45 minutes. But there is a way to get this thing equalized. And you also mentioned earlier that if you're looking at this team statistically, and you got 3 of the 10 field players with the last name Zimmerman, 30% of them are going to have that last name. And you talk about their contributions, though. It feels like it's so much heavier, right?
It does. It certainly does. And I think I want to go back to my previous point just a second. A lot of those really great teams, they actually do feel beatable because they don't wow you in any one area. They're just really good in every area. They're above average in every facet of the game. Washington and Lee seems to be that team where all 11 players are decidedly above average. And then when you talk about the Zimmermans, well, they're well above average.
You're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. And the miscues we haven't necessarily seen yet here on Schellenberger. So Washington and Lee is advertised. But for Coach Olson's Lynchburg squad, you got to like what you've seen in this first 45 minutes because you get kicked late in that game against Shenandoah, giving up that 90th minute goal. You don't necessarily know what energy you're going to bring to the table in this Saturday affair.
You know, I think it was a fine first half for Lynchburg, and I think it's a half that Coach Todd Olson and his staff will feel good about. They know they're in the fight. They know it is a nice bounce back from that heartbreaking loss to Shenandoah, but they know there is a lot of work to do as well.
Hornets squad so far showing that they can possess in the midfield. Riley Wampler starts the second half in the midfield, but loses possession, and the run is on. Chance for Elizabeth Zimmerman again. Fires a line drive at Shepard, who eventually gathers. Had that one hit the gloves and had to move forward, but another nice IQ play to just keep it in front.
Sure was, and that's why you do all that agility work, and that's why you do all the training in the off season. Not just to be able to save the first one, but to be able to scramble to the second one. That was big right there, how Shepard got to that quickly.
Got to be careful early in the half where Washington and Lee has just started to dominate because a lot of the time their goals are spread evenly throughout the match. It isn't necessarily a 10-minute period where all the scoring occurs. It feels like they are dangerous in every one of the 90 minutes.
I think that's a key part of their game plan, too, is let's dominate the first 15 minutes of each half. You know, that's not just unique to Washington and Lee. That's a very big theme in all sports. Let's dominate the beginning of the first and second halves, and you can really win a lot of games that way. You just kind of catch a team that maybe is late getting the alarm clock. You get an early chance, and you start stepping on necks out there, and that's what Washington and Lee does.
This Lynchburg team, before the skid that they're currently occupying, was doing really well middle of the season, 7-1 streak. And then all of a sudden you encounter that tie against Virginia Wesleyan, a tough affair to go up against a tough opponent, and then losing games to Randolph-Macon and Shenandoah. You knew it was a tough stretch of ODAC play, and play will certainly be a little bit easier in the weeks to come. But you feel like this is ultimately the punctuation mark at the end of the sentence. You're getting the toughest team in the conference, and this is a big test before you go and play those other teams.
Sure, and can you learn from this stretch and build on this stretch and then set you up maybe for postseason success as well? How can you use this, even if you don't win games, even if you don't get decisions, how can you use that in your favor going forward?
No doubt, and this Lynchburg team wants to get back to the postseason. They've been bounced in the ODAC semifinal in 2 consecutive years, one of which was at the hands of Washington and Lee. It was a 2-1 game, and the 89th minute, Megan Lauder equalized to make it 2-2, and then Washington and Lee found the advantage in overtime. That was back in 2023. And then last year, of course, Virginia Wesleyan getting that 3-2 victory.
Chance here for Lynchburg, but Washington and Lee with nice touch there. That's one where sometimes those defenders first touch, that ball kind of rebounds off a little bit longer than you want. All of a sudden, Lynchburg's in business, but instead, Washington and Lee very composed defending there.
Zimmerman, middle of the field, looks for options. Passes left. Opportunity for Elizabeth. Trying to bounce forward to Dunbar. Pass to Zimmerman. Quickly approaching that goal line and safe to keep it in bounds. Anna Phillips maybe got away with a little bit of a late contest. We'll see if this is a foul or over the line. Referee had a little bit of a weird signal off the initial reaction. It looks like it's a throw for W&L.
That would have been the third option that I would not have guessed there, Evan, but it works out good. I think the officiating's been great. Physical, but not over the line.
This time the chance goes way over at the foot of Warner. Takes a ricochet. Will be a Lynchburg throw. And yeah, that was definitely one of those situations you don't necessarily see it in every soccer match. But you feel like both of these teams going at the rhythm and flow of play they've done all year long. They like to run. They like to keep going.
Beautiful turn.
How about the move from Hargrove? Talked about her in the first half. Minutes have accelerated in the last few contests. Another one of those multi-sport athletes in high school. Passes off to Ava Olson, ready to go down Main Street, still moving forward, and runs into trouble.
Last touch there from Olson was just a little strong. Credit to pressure defending to create that just slight bobble.
One sister trying to connect to another. Elizabeth Zimmerman going out wide. Gonna have to circle around, and Zoe Villarreal gets the extra touch out of bounds.
Yeah, good clearance, and you get it into touch rather than across the byline for a corner there. So the good play. Let's talk tactics real quick for Lynchburg. We haven't really seen them try to switch fields at all. We haven't seen them try to go sideline to sideline. I know it's a little bit tougher in the women's game just because it's hard for a player to load up and truly cross from one side to the other. But I think that could be of some value here for Lynchburg in breaking down that good Washington and Lee defense, and possibly breaking them down in the midfield as well if you could do that.
In games where they've emerged victorious, they have gone left to right very quickly as Shepard comes off her line. And this is also a tactic where you saw in one of the last encounters, Lynchburg's not afraid to send extra numbers forward because you understand, yes, it's a one-goal deficit, but how long do you wait until you try to play the risk game? And I think Coach Olson understands there are spots where you can safely maneuver that and send an extra attacker forward.
That's exactly right. And I mentioned, the women's game because you watch a men's game on TV or you're watching the Premier League or international soccer, and those guys can just chip it across the field 40 yards. It's nothing for them. Women have to load up a little bit, but again, they can still do it, and I think Lynchburg can do it well. We've seen that, as you said, when they've had success, they are using sideline to sideline.
It's a lot of horsepower, but also there's a lot of IQ that we've talked about. And for a young squad, this back line has been right there with everyone. This time getting tested as Elizabeth Zimmerman weaves, passes to the middle, and no chance for Helen Ockney to take a stab. Off to the races on the other side. Here's Sammy Rogstad having herself a nice affair, and there's a big-time collision on the far side of the field. Goes the way of the Hornets.
Yeah, just a common foul there, if you will. It was just a foul in the first half. We thought maybe it was a card. Our official kind of gave a card-like gesture, but it was not an actual yellow card. So no bookings just yet in this one. And a chance for Lynchburg to develop here.
I appreciate your confirmation. Talked about that in the middle of halftime. Got to ask our fantastic LHSN crew, hey, is that one actually a card? And we were battling the sun, and Eli Schilling corroborated it was just a normal foul.
If you're Lynchburg, do you press here? Do you try to keep this ball in the Washington and Lee defensive third? How hard do you try to keep it in there, I should say?
And conversely, does W&L know that? Because sometimes they can play the possession game, and if they find somebody getting out of position, all of a sudden you fire and you're off to the races.
Exactly right. Find the overcommitment, find the imbalance in the other team's lines, and attack.
Here is a chance to attack. Elizabeth Zimmerman again, top of the box. Dishes off, close to the goal, and Shepard got a glove on it. Second chance, ricochets right on the goal line. Exit stage left. That was dangerous.
Yeah, exciting stuff there. Really kind of our true first goal mouth scramble kind of play. That was fun. That was thrilling. That'll get your heart rate up. Lynchburg survives it.
Avery Hanna hadn't had her name called yet today and almost came away with the second goal. Look at that save from Shepard, but the second effort to be right in front of the frame.
Yeah, great job by the other defenders to collapse as well. Make that workspace really busy for the Washington and Lee offense.
You talk about trying to get another team out of position, but it also starts with maybe testing them a little bit. And Washington and Lee, with a chance like that, will definitely leave Lynchburg scratching their heads a little bit as Hannah Phillips has a chance moving forward. The shot takes a ricochet off towards the goal line. Another great opportunity to break through.
Yeah, beautiful setup by Lynchburg. Phillips with a great chance here. You'd love to see, if you're the Hornets, a trailing run, an accompanying run there to maybe put yourself in position for a rebound or give Phillips another option. But Lynchburg with a genuine bona fide chance here.
Here's Warner right on the doorstep, searching for the window. Now goes outside. Nifty footwork. McEnroe gets another save. All the way extended, a corner for Lynchburg, and some brilliant offense here in the last 60 seconds.
From both teams, in fact. This is really getting good now. The heat is on. Crowd is coming alive a little bit.
The Hornets will pack the box. They have tested the keeper for Washington and Lee, who has just done everything. Kate McEnroe, the sophomore. Maybe another chance, lofted all the way to the other side and out. Credit to Kate McEnroe and what she has done in a Generals uniform. She's started all 15 games this year, and even in that freshman campaign, she has gotten consistent time. And you think about seeing where she's at statistically in so many categories. You even go to the team's goals against average stat, tied for 12th with just .36 goals against average. You feel like she is a big reason why.
I'm really impressed. McEnroe, 6'1", by the way. That really helps back there between the pipes.
Hannah Phillips, who had the chance on the other side, gets it stripped away. Elizabeth Zimmerman tapped to the middle of the field. Here comes Sarah down to the turf, and Lynchburg takes possession.
Yeah, that was we talk about 50-50 balls. That was a 50-50 call. I think each team's fan bases thought they were going to be the beneficiary of the whistle, but instead it's a Hornets ball and a chance to mobilize again.
That call hanging in the balance, as you see on your screen. Ava Olsen goes down first, perhaps the reason she got the call. Here's Wampler firing high, and McEnroe climbs the ladder.
Well, we've seen Wampler doesn't mind that distance, huh?
I think she's learning from one of her teammates, Morgan Oliver, who has consistently netted a lot of goals from outside the 18. What a second half we have on our hands. It has been some really nice offense, and at this point, the way that both teams are shooting, you feel like it's not an if when we see the next goal, but definitely when. Here's another look. Wampler's shot, and though it doesn't necessarily test McEnroe at the same level of the last few, you feel like that changes the eye level a little bit.
And credit to keepers for some incredible play in this one. Ella Fulmer could not run down that loose ball in the near left sideline. Changes for Washington and Lee. We did see the Generals seem to sub a bit more in half one than Lynchburg did.
Mary Parrish Green back onto the field, got some decent minutes in the first half. Lynchburg methodical in their changes. They haven't made many, as right now, if you just look at the Lynchburg bench, you don't see many players with their pennies off. Maddie Olson is the only one with a jersey on. Obviously, a few more players have been involved in switches, but goes to show Coach Olson's consistency does not lie. And Hannah Phillips getting some nice play, sends it all the way down the field.
Well-fought ball. That's one your team can rally behind. That's kind of that scrappy football concept. Maybe it does not lead to anything for you, but it shows your team, hey, I'm out here working for it. Let's everybody else follow suit and work hard as well.
You don't necessarily want to compare sports, but think about punting in American football. You're just getting the ball down the field and establishing where you can set up shop. You think Lynchburg wants to get back to that attacking third soon, understanding the momentum they started to have.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me, too. I mean, especially when you think about the history, right, because rugby comes from soccer, American football comes from rugby. Field position is really important in all three sports, you have to say.
Lots of wide dimensions. Here comes Michaela Hargrove looking to explore the midfield. searching with defenders all around, and the footwork isn't fancy enough to keep possession, but Villarreal gets it right back. Fires forward, Hargrove now isolated, looking for an option. Here comes Ava Olsen, a touch too heavy. And Washington and Lee ready to go the other way.
Go back to that Michaela Hargrove play here as this ball goes into touch. She's surrounded by 3 defenders, and some Lynchburg players were there. I think you ask yourself, if you're a Lynchburg player, do I want to remain a stationary target for her to offload to, or do I want to try to make a run and really stretch that defense a little bit more? And that's a split-second decision, right? I mean, that's one of those, it's like looks easy from up here, but when you're out there, always hard to know when should I move or when should I try to stay put so she knows I'm a passing option.
You get the full screen view up here on the broadcast. You don't necessarily see it on the field like you said, and sometimes even just the commotion happening around you, not who is on the ball, but who is making cuts on the other side of the field. That can impact things.
Yeah, and fitness plays a part in that too, right? Because when you're gassed, it's very difficult to make another run. If you've had to really hustle just to get down there, it's very easy to stay stationary and maybe wait until you just get the ball to move.
Michaela Hargrove has been someone who has really started to eat up minutes like we talked about. You wonder in that forward position, with the expectation growing, does that become a little more difficult? As Villarreal goes all the way to the near side, somehow kept it in bounds. Generals trying to sneak behind the back line, and Hartzog moving back. Going to have to be careful now as Otney gets forward, somehow gets the ball. Everybody going into the box. Shepard has to be careful, and a timely grab.
Yep, own the 9-yard box there. Good play by Shepard to come out and pick that one off. After some physical stuff in the corner, I think we're seeing again the officials are letting the gals play a little bit. You have to respond. You have to know that if you're a player and know, hey, maybe I need to follow suit and get a bit more physical.
Look at this opportunity, and sometimes the referee won't see everything. I don't even know if that was strong enough to warrant a call. Didn't in the regular run of play, but Helen Otney just sneaky as a senior to get back to the ball.
Yeah, and again, credit Otney for doing the move, and let me try it. If they whistle me, it's fine, because if she doesn't do that move, Washington and Lee loses the ball anyway, right?
No
It's
doubt.
Actually, you could call that maybe a calculated risk, I think.
Especially at that part of the field. It's essentially the same as a goal kick. Pass goes back. Mary Parrish Green now in possession. Moving towards the middle. Washington and Lee, when you talk about calculated moves, every single pass feels like it's part of the system. And those risks typically pay off when the Generals move forward. They hold a 1-0 lead on Schellenberger Field, the final game of the day on homecoming weekend. Boyce searching to move forward. Kick ultimately ricochets off Wobbler. Trickles out to Lauren Orner. One-on-one looking for someone else to help the attack. It goes to Madeline Boyce. Out wide, and the move a little too heavy.
Might not get to a replay of it, but when Lynchburg started to make the run, I don't know if you could see it or not, but Washington and Lee's back four was perfectly lined up, perfectly in formation. And again, that's what the good defenses do. One defender doesn't get too far ahead of the other. You lose your structure. All of a sudden you become vulnerable. Just that little element right there, which again, I don't know if everybody paid attention to it, but that is an indicator of just how well schooled this Washington and Lee team is, but specifically the defense.
And the defense, it goes back to last year as well. As you see
Right
this
here.
opportunity.
See all four?
Connect four and no openings. Feel like that has been perennially successful.
And the
this
midfielders
Washington
are
League.
chasing as well
Yes.
on that too. As they should be, of course.
We'll go back to last year. They had a .26 goals against average, and that's even better than this year, which seems almost impossible to think about, as their mark for this season's at .36. By the way, if you don't know what goals against average stands for, that's how many goals you allow per game. So you're allowing one goal every 3 matches.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And again, the competition is good as well. It's not as though Washington and Lee is playing a weak schedule. Certainly we know the conference schedule is very good, and then non-conference, they're going out and finding some tough games.
Their 2 losses this season to number 12 Swarthmore and number 1 Emory, both by a goal. They were tight affairs, and Washington and Lee really made a statement on the first day of ODAC play as Villarreal is involved in the challenge. They beat Virginia Wesleyan 4-0 on the road, and it felt like the conference all of a sudden recognized, oh wow, the Generals are who we thought they were.
Yeah, there's not a lot of rebuilding for Washington and Lee. It's more reloading every year. They bring in great talent. Speaking of talent, they will bring in a sub, Emily Burke, back in the ball game for the Blue Shirts.
26 minutes remain here in this contest. Lynchburg has stuck neck and neck in the second half. All you need is one. They understand that a goal could be late in the affair. We mentioned 2023 when they scored in the 89th minute. You got to go back a little bit further, though, to the last time that Lynchburg emerged victorious against Washington and Lee, because this battle, when we look at it going back and forth year after year, has really been a tight one. Ball will go out on the near touchline.
There's Tegan Casey looking for Madeline Boyce. Casey's back in as that striker for Lynchburg, replacing Michaela Hargrove, who came off a few minutes ago.
You liked her play in the first half. To confirm that last win for Lynchburg over WNL, October 1st, 2021. It was a 2-1 win in Lexington. Alex Allen actually scored, who we mentioned earlier in the game. But when you look at the last 6 meetings between these teams, and 5 of them, both teams have scored. So it has been very seesaw approach when you look at the offenses.
Well, that's interesting, too, because I think folks that have been listening would know we've been very complimentary of the Washington and Lee defense, and you have mentioned a couple times about that great defense that Lynchburg just kind of graduated recently. So the note that both teams are scoring in every game is a little bit interesting. No clean sheets in there.
And clean sheets for these two teams this year have been the main blueprint. You look at 17 combined, and you feel like that tally will continue to climb as now Madeline Boyce tries to chase the ball. It goes over the goal line, and better defense that time from Avery Hanna.
Trying the deep angled through ball there to the corner. That's something that we typically see from Lynchburg. You and I have mentioned the wings a little bit today, but haven't seen that a ton. So maybe a change there late to try to incorporate into that into the offense more. But again, so much of that is just feel based on what a player sees on the chessboard at any given time.
Stephanie Zataki back in the match for the Generals. And I love the analogy chessboard because it feels like that's the pace of play we're seeing in this game. It hasn't necessarily been a risky affair. Both teams trying to set up the offense and figure out the algorithms to get the goal on the board. Unfortunately for Hornets fans, the Generals are the only ones with the tally on the scoreboard, 1-0.
Washington and Lee certainly knows this game is not over yet. If you're Lynchburg, you really, at this point, with only 23 minutes left, cannot concede another goal and expect to get a result.
Emily Burke charging forward on the outside. The ball ricochets through the gloves of Shepard. And how about the cover-up from Rogstad behind? A second chance, a benign one that rolls over the goal line.
Yeah, so a little bit of miscommunication there. I feel sure Shepard was calling keeper, which is kind of the universal phrase for let me take it. But again, pressure, heat of the moment. Sometimes you just don't hear that. You just keep running as a defender.
Well, you don't necessarily want to go and harp on some of the moments that have gone the other way and favored other teams. But when you look at that Shenandoah 90th minute, the way they got the goal, it was actually miscommunication on the back line where Ava Olson and Kate Shepard both ultimately had a little bit of an encounter and miscommunication that led to McKenna Newcomb scoring the goal. And, as we've said, this defense is so good and so stout, but you understand those moments happen throughout a season, and you got to find a way to work forward.
Yeah, and you have to understand offensively that those moments happen for other teams. That's the value of let's just get the ball in the penalty box. Let's get the ball in the box. Let's make it busy in there. And, maybe we get a miscommunication on the other side from our opponent.
That's why for Lynchburg now, it's about moving forward, trying to get it to the right part of the field. Ava Olson. The words of Kyle Haney, that was a 3-car pileup, but we keep playing forward.
The referee had to take evasive action in there as well. Good athleticism.
And Nice to let them continue forward. This time that won't happen. Player goes down to the turf. It's Morgan Oliver earning the call.
And some of our fans may not know, but all of our officials in soccer, you have to take a fitness test. You got to be able to run a mile or maybe 2 miles now in under a certain amount of time. But I'm not sure there's an agility component in that fitness test. That's what they need to start making them do. Let's get some side-to-side shuttle run going on, make them pick up a beanbag or something like that.
If they start hosting a referee combine, Schellenberger Field better be the first option.
Yeah. We should broadcast that.
That would be a fun one. Madeline Boyce gets in behind, pass right to the middle, but a little too low. Lunden Hartzog now inching forward. Here's Zoe Villarreal. Very sharp defensively today when you look at the outside part of the field. Same can be said for Sammy Rogstad, who has the ball at her feet and a lot of open space. Searching and will redirect. How about that one-on-one defense by the Generals as well?
Solid there. I like that from Rogstad, though. Channel your defender towards that sideline, and then that should open things up back in that alleyway.
Back and forth we go with just about 20 minutes to play. Last 3 Lynchburg wins have been by a single goal when you look in this meeting. And so there haven't been many lopsided affairs. I think if you've watched this one with us on LHSN, you understand why.
Yeah, you might be surprised if there was a lopsided scoreline in there.
Going back to 1999, Lynchburg has the upper hand when you look at the series meetings. 21 wins. WNL has 8 victories and 6 draws. But it does feel like every year it's a close contest. Here's Villarreal, searching for options. Cross, starting to line to the other side. Oliver can't catch up.
Beautiful idea right there from Villarreal. Hit one hard at the far post, and then if you pull it a little bit, it becomes a cross. It's almost kind of a two-way option right there and speaks to what we were talking about. Get some balls in the box, force the Washington and Lee defense to have to really activate under pressure late in this game.
And Kyle, I don't think you mind that laser line drive approach because, like we've said, WNL owns a height advantage in almost every part of the field.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A line drive boot right there might even be preferred to getting a ball that floats with some height.
Wampler weaves in and out, passes off to Villarreal. Can the Hornets connect the dots, trying to get that equalizing goal inside the final 20 minutes? Pass to the other side of the field. Here is some of that reversal. Oliver from way downtown. Not going to connect this time.
Yeah, don't hate it there. Don't hate it from Lynchburg at all. I like the composed build-up. Don't be afraid to pass back. Don't be afraid to go away from the goal. I think as a general rule, though, if you make 2 passes away from the goal, it's probably time to start reversing course and attacking again, if that makes sense. And, of course, back to the previous statements, difficult to remember that under pressure with a defender hanging all over you.
You can kind of get a sense of when the Hornets want to shoot as well because Morgan Oliver is somebody who consistently likes to fire outside the box.
Yep.
And if you can just create that opening for her as the teammate, you've got a chance to equalize. Like you said earlier, you never know what happens when you put the game into the hands of the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and I wonder if you can see a player like Oliver loading up, can you crash, can you sprint to the goal for that potential rebound? And as this game gets later and later, I think we'll see more of that because you almost just have to become desperate at that point. But still a 1-0 game. I don't think desperate yet would be a great word for Lynchburg. I think they're still trying to play their brand of soccer.
You don't want to wait too late either when Washington and Lee can just start trapping it in the corners and
exactly
using the clock. We know in Division III there isn't necessarily stoppage time up to the referee. It will trickle off the clock, and that's where the game will conclude. As McEnroe was way outside from the net. Passes off to her teammate on the far side. Generals opening up space. They do so with the lead. When we look at the stats so far, 13 shots to 6. WNL has the advantage, but corners-wise, Lynchburg has really dominated the set-piece category today. 7 corners on the game.
And that corner stat, that kind of becomes your de facto time of possession stat because you know if you're getting a lot of corners, well, you've obviously had the ball and you've had the ball in their zone quite a bit.
Generals looking outside, an extra tap. We'll see what the signal is, and it's a goal kick. That's a great point, too, because Lynchburg has used set pieces well throughout the season, and that doesn't happen if they don't move forward. As WNL has a pair of changes, Megan Zimmerman and Helen Otney will join the attack. They replace Stephanie Zataki and number 5, Emily Burke.
Wonder if we'll see any changes for Lynchburg late here with just over 16 to play. Do you have time for a late reserve or two with some burst, some fresh wheels to maybe make an impact on this game?
It's tricky because when we saw that surge from the Lynchburg offense, it almost feels like it's the exact same characters that we're seeing on our screen right now. Had a lot of chances to start off the second half. Haven't found the goal yet. 10 Hartzog looking to advance possession. Going out wide this time, Morgan Oliver. Already earned herself an ODAC Player of the Week honor. Passes all the way forward. And Boyce a little too far beyond the post.
Really good ball there from Oliver. I think if you're Boyce, you'd love to be a step closer to that. But again, you're saying that in hindsight. That was a very good ball.
Now Tegan Casey collects in the middle. Off to Oliver again. Maybe Lynchburg wanting to run a little bit more of the offense through 7 in white. Pass will reverse the field. Fulmer pressed to the near touchline.
And this is what we were talking about earlier. It doesn't have to be one cross-field pass to switch the field. Have 2 or 3 passes, but get it sideline to sideline. Force that Washington and Lee structure to change and bend and shift a little bit.
For Coach Tiffany Penns right now, do you feel like you're safe to start playing the defensive game, or do you just trust this attack enough to where you can still play the same way you've done it for the first 75 minutes?
That's a great question because so many teams, that do that differently. I think probably ready to play the defensive game. Yeah, under 15 here. I think you play the defensive game with the awareness that, you've got a couple Zimmermans out there. Hey, if we get a chance to bust out, let's do it. Let's attack. Let's get that second goal and just be done with this. But I think the mentality should be becoming more defensive for Washington and Lee. Now, I think most coaches would say that's smart tactics.
Foul as Casey moved forward. And I don't think it's the complete park the bus mentality where WNL is just going to settle. We've seen them score late goals throughout the season, but they have done what they've needed to do here in the Hill City, and the Hornets have to change the narrative.
Yeah, great call, and the park the bus phrase is really just perfect and so applicable in our game. I don't think it's park the bus time yet, but Washington and Lee might only be about 6 minutes away from that as well.
Oliver was trying to chase down that far side. Doesn't work out this time. Going back into some of the history for Washington and Lee, of course, Coach Tiffany Penns has found so much success. 4th season with WNL, and she has only had 1 ODAC loss, 32-1-4, which pretty much paints the resume as best as possible. That's, of course, regular season play, but you do think about the trajectory of this team, and, when you have 1 loss in 3.5 seasons, you're probably going to be playing in the NCAA tournament.
That's right. And so that will become the next phase of growth for Coach Penns and her team. They want to take this to a national championship. They want to be able to beat those teams like Emory, who they lost to. They want to beat those teams consistently and make consistent long postseason runs. So that's kind of the phase their program is at right now.
This time the ball rolls all the way out to Shepherd. And the WNL men's team found a little bit of that success last year, advanced to the Final Four in Las Vegas. Wami Agbe, a big reason why. They had a lot of attackers that played at a high level, and WNL proving once again they're a pretty strong opponent in the ODAC. You and I got to see some of their play here at Schellenberger, and I mean, it's the same as the women's squad. They just correct every single part of the field. They don't make mistakes, and it feels like they play a full 90 minutes.
Yeah, really, they did. I mean, Agbe was a legitimate star, but then when you have 10 guys around him on any given game that are just doing all the right things, doing all the little things you need for your ball club to be successful, I mean, that's what these great teams do.
Well, Boyce fires. She passes to the middle, and this time the Generals had a runway taken away. Ava Olsen gets a foot on it as well. Now a toss up in the middle of the field. Lunden Hartzog does well just to stall the effort of Otney.
think if you're Lynchburg, you have to be willing to leave your feet a little bit more to win a ball. Not talking necessarily about slide tackling a Washington Lee player with the ball, but those balls that you've been kind of reaching for all game and trying to run through, probably need to leave your feet with those and just get a deflection of some kind, try to cause some chaos and really sell out here for some final touches. Hargrove back in the game for Lynchburg. Let's see if she's ready to do some damage.
And so is Hannah Phillips. The question that you asked earlier, and here's the moment. Hargrove goes to the middle of the field, and the pass is just too heavy. That was a big-time opening, and Lynchburg couldn't capitalize.
A little too much foot there. Hargrove was close, and then she realized, let me create some space and go to the middle, but still dangerous here for Lynchburg. You've got Washington and Lee back on their heels slightly now.
Here's another look, and Hannah Phillips could have ultimately held it herself. Bren Bissinger does enough just to pressure the moment. And the throw from Villarreal goes straight to the Generals' defense. Otney now moving to the middle of the field. Lynchburg sprinting all the way back.
Very good touch there from Otney to collect that ball that was fairly high velocity. She kept it right under her feet and then made the turn.
Elizabeth Zimmerman giving go in the middle of the field. Opening the space as she goes out wide. And here's Avery Hanna off to Zimmerman. Goal line, ready for the cross. Takes a bounce. Perfect spot for Sarah Zimmerman. That couldn't tuck it away. Oh, that was close.
That's another one. I mean, what a settle on a cross. Again, that was fairly high velocity. It just stays glued to her boot there. I mean, it's like Velcro on her feet, and then she can turn and do whatever she wants.
I mean, that's away from her momentum as well. That's taking her ultimately to the Lynchburg bench, and somehow she redirects.
And that's what so much of our game is about, right, with those great players. Yes, speed, physicality, all that matters. That does matter, but that touch is so important.
Now Riley Wappler having some contact on the near side. Referee points in the direction of WNL with under 10 minutes to play. Not necessarily the fiercest game we've seen all year. You haven't seen a lot of tempers flare yet. It has just been very nicely played. A lot of control on both sides. Washington and Lee does have the goal, but Lynchburg's still in the fight. They've thrown jabs throughout the entire night, just haven't had a punch. Was able to sustain a cut. The Generals have been a step ahead.
Good close from behind. Otney. She just muscled her way to get to that ball from right behind. Again, if the referees are going to allow it, then take advantage of that.
Here's Sarah Zimmerman, and look at the work from Zoe Villarreal going at it all the way to the goal line, and somehow the Generals able to get a corner out of it.
Got to defend this well if you're Lynchburg, and then be ready for the counterattack here. I think, Washington and Lee is going to leave two back.
Everyone else at least in the area code. Looks like Bren Bissinger will be the one to take the corner for a team that is averaging so far on the season 7.5. Lobbed all the way far side. Shepard's going to have to go up. Careful to make sure Amelia Mankey couldn't get her head on it.
Going to go long there. I thought Shepard might opt for a little outlet throw to the sideline, but she put it down and booted it. Now Lynchburg's got to play defense again.
Lynchburg not afraid to try and move straight down the field. It hasn't worked yet. Now Helen Otney shepherding it all the way to the corner, but this time it's taken away on the touchline, and Lynchburg gets the call. Referee having to corroborate as Otney was frustrated.
Yeah, Coach Olson directing traffic from the sideline. Not sure if it's a tactical change necessarily. I think there are some tactics changing there for Lynchburg, actually. I think we're going to see defenders starting to move up a bit more.
You saw them overloading that near side as well, because I think right now possession is the name of the game. 7.5 minutes to play. Safe to say Lynchburg understands they need the goal soon. They've played well, and so far the display that's on your scoreboard, 1-0, feels pretty reminiscent of what we've seen. The Generals have been just a tad better, but the second half has been played very evenly.
It really has been an even second half, and I think both teams are going to feel good at game's end. But obviously, if Washington and Lee holds the 1-0 lead, they're going to feel much, much better. 2 players down, 1 for each squad. Let's unpack this here and make sure everybody's okay.
Lauren Orner hit the turf for Lynchburg, and she is still down. Teammates coming over. Referee will grant the call in the direction of the Hornets. Lauren Orner is one of the staples of the Lynchburg midfield, someone who has started every match, so obviously you hope that she is okay to go.
Yeah, back on her feet without the need for an athletic trainer to come out, so that's a fantastic sign there. Does stop the clock. Referee stopped it with 6:59 left to play. Focus level's got to be really, really high. There was a yellow card shown there. Coach Pins is not thrilled with the call with the official. Still not thrilled with the call.
Haven't really seen animation from either side. And now you're seeing it for the first time this evening. We'll try to confirm who had the call, as Orner did take the tumble, and it's a free kick for the Hornets. Goes out, staying and lingering in the box. Here comes Hannah Phillips. Pass to the other side and not corralled by Oliver. Hargrove sticking close, finds a way to the middle, and this time the attack is taken away.
Thought it was a pretty good turn there from Hargrove. Just a tight space, tight window to get through. Lynchburg can keep the pressure on, though.
Yellow card was issued to Sarah Zimmerman. So obviously one of the main characters on WNL's side, and maybe that's why this coaching staff is a little extra frustrated. Just outside 6 minutes to play. Lynchburg advancing, and the clearance on the near side. Hornets take over right around midfield.
Hornets are in a position here still with over 6 to play, Evan, where they don't have to just take any look they get. They can still be slightly choosy on a shot, but when you lose the ball, now all of a sudden you're in trouble. Washington and Lee could attack. They could also just milk off another 60 seconds here with possession if they wanted to.
Look at Nat Deacon Beasley on the near side, rather, making sure she corrals it, saying, let's keep playing.
The reaction time there, it's almost like she's a former national champ or something.
Something like that. Fitting we talk about the alumni on a weekend like this. And you're going to need everybody in the stadium if you want to go toe-to-toe with a team like this. Number 9 Washington and Lee up by a goal as we head to the final moments. Lynchburg doing what they can to try and create at least 1 or 2 more chances in the dying minutes.
Yeah, and now with less than 5, if you're Lynchburg defensively, you might actually have to leave your feet on a tackle. I mean, you might have to risk a little bit here defensively because you have to get this ball back sooner rather than later. And it's another one of those risk-reward things, okay? If you miss with a slide tackle, sure, you might get carded, but at this point in the game, you kind of have to have some reckless abandon if you're Lynchburg. Especially on this end of the field, Evan.
No doubt. And as long as you're making sure it's nothing reckless, I mean, you got to go with physicality. This team has done so all year long because, as you see on your screen, Washington and Lee not afraid to just walk to the corner and keep this one maybe a little deceptive.
Stall ball, kind of a corner play, yeah. Lynchburg didn't realize it was put in.
Now Generals searching for the other side. The pass is too heavy. Rolling down. Villarreal will watch it go over the goal line. So the surge starts now. 4.5 minutes. Kate Shepard will gather and send it down the field.
Yeah, you can see the urgency here, and rightfully so for Lynchburg. Washington and Lee, I think, will adjust accordingly.
All the heavy hitters in the ball game at this time. And Lynchburg wants to make sure that they at least have a moment. But now the Generals can try and take over. Megan Zimmerman leading the charge. Look at the isolation. Finds the opening to Sarah Zimmerman. Extra tap, but Otney can't get the ball at her feet. Now player down in midfield is Sydney DeVory. And you wonder, again, if it is more of a stalling tactic or if it is truly an injury, but it did look like she was hit pretty hard.
Yeah, I think if it's an acting job, it's a darn good one. We'll put it at that. There was a pretty good interplay there between her and Michaela Hargrove going after that 50-50 ball. She just came down awkwardly on the ankle, I think. Both teams will get a chance to chat it up here and hydrate, and it will be a furious final 3 minutes and 42 seconds, especially from the Lynchburg perspective. Washington and Lee will be told right now, use the long balls. Don't be afraid to punt this one. Don't be afraid to use the touch lines. Don't take any chances here if you feel pressure coming from a Lynchburg offensive attack.
Clock is stopped with 3:42 remaining. You hope Sydney Devori is okay. Someone who has been a big piece to this Generals defense, senior from Ruckersville, Virginia, who started every single match trying to walk it off. And you don't always see this, Kyle, but the goalkeeper, Kate McEnroe, actually shielded off the AT crew. And maybe sometimes you see from players like that, you don't want to even get them involved if you don't have to. Let's try to keep our heads in the game, make sure everybody feels confident to keep going. And Devori looks like she's staying in.
Yep. Good stuff there. Key defensive piece for Washington and Lee. As we get ready to restart things, 3:42.
You use the term furious for the final 4 minutes. Safe to say that's what's in the cards because Lynchburg is going to have to find a charge down the field. And Coach Todd Olson saying, be ready to Hannah Phillips. The ball is dropped, and the Generals trying to stay possessing the ball. Lynchburg thought they got it, and the referee shakes his head no. So WNL takes over, 3.5 remain. Ball in the middle to Hargrove. Got a foot on it and now booted all the way down the field. Got to be careful to stay true to the fundamentals here, Kyle. You see everybody getting out of position, and this is when things get tricky.
Yeah, and this is where you'll hear the line from the Washington and Lee bench, and that's form up. Let's get that line again. Make sure we're straight and buttoned up in the back rows there.
Ava Olsen's pass won't connect on the far side. And now a charge down the other side. Rogstad trying to advance and hold the Generals to the outside margins of the field. Ready to trap in the corner. And out for a throw.
Perfectly fine for Washington and Lee. They'll probably try to go to those corners. You draw so many defenders towards you, and you do waste more and more time off that clock in doing so.
This Lynchburg team only tallied consecutive losses once last year, and they were against two ranked opponents, number 18 Hardin Simmons and number 17 Johns Hopkins. It's happened again this year with Randolph-Macon and Shenandoah, two tough conference opponents. They don't want to go down in a 3-game skid, but if the score line holds, that is the narrative that this Lynchburg team will try to correct in the final weeks of the regular season. And they have been tested time and time again against the ODAC's best.
It really is a stiff test in the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, and it's, going to get a little bit easier, but again, it's not going to get that much easier because the schedule is just so darn tough.
Ball finds its way out on the far side. Lynchburg gets possession. Under 2 minutes to play. And once again, WNL doing better. Now able to use the wide parts of the field. It's just a game of keep away, but Lynchburg takes advantage. Here's Hannah Phillips, a tap to Hargrove. Opening up space. White jerseys flooding forward. Now to Wampler. Reversing the field. This is the moment Lynchburg needs. The cross takes a deflection. McEnroe lost possession and down to the turf as she gathers.
Whistle is blown. Let's see what the call is.
Kate McEnroe is frustrated after that one. She has actually gotten a yellow card earlier in the season. She's been on the other end of a call, but obviously maintaining possession with 73 ticks remaining. Was that the final chance? We'll see if Lynchburg has the opportunity as McEnroe is ready to punt it into the Saturday night sky. Takes another deflection. Den Hartog places it perfectly to Hargrove. Pass to the near side, and it gets out of the way.
That was good goalkeeping again from McEnroe. Keepers never like to get hit and never like to take contact, but I thought it was just good, hard soccer there. And I think the official agreed with that, obviously.
Would have to be a magical chance if Lynchburg gets it now. Villarreal does what she can to keep it in bounds. Generals can just send it over the line. 30 seconds to go. Fulmer walks forward. The entry to Hargrove. And now the Generals using every second. Hannah Phillips going to the goal line, and that might do it. What a 90-minute affair we have seen on Schellenberger Field, and it has been full of action. But Washington and Lee proves why they're the top dogs in the conference. They'll move to 8-0 in ODAC play, but not without a very valiant effort from Lynchburg as they fall 1-0 on homecoming Saturday.
Fantastic ball game. Congratulations to Washington and Lee. They earned every part of this. I think for Lynchburg, they're scratching the surface of what is possible. I think we have to say they played better in this game than they did in some of those losses earlier in the season, Evan. But unfortunately, it's still a loss. It's a 3-game losing streak. It's 4 in a row without a win for Lynchburg. That's not a region that they're accustomed to being in very often. So this will test the fortitude of this ball club.
It's an eerie air over Schellenberger Field because you feel like this team has fought very heavily throughout the years. You take a look at some of the highlights, and you're going to see it on your screen. The Hornets had chances in this game to get the equalizer, to go ahead in that first half. And while they didn't convert, I like how you said this is definitely going to be one of those better games when you just feel the vibes, because you go back to Tuesday against Shenandoah, while it was just a 1-goal deficit like this one, doesn't it feel like Lynchburg had a little extra fight on the Saturday night?
I think so. I think homecoming was part of that. I think also when you're on a losing streak, that's part of that too, right? You fight a little bit harder. Sometimes you do play to your competition as well. I mean, Lynchburg knew coming in Washington and Lee was ranked and very good, so that's an element in there as well. Coach Todd Olson is such a master. He's going to find a way to use this as a motivator for his team, and I think it will be a 2-part message. I think part 1 is going to be, hey, we're pretty good. We can play with the best. But part B is we have to do certain things better in order to win against the best.
Definitely feels like there are two sides of the coin. Yes, you're in a position in the ODAC table where it might be a little bit troubling at this part of the season, but there's a lot of optimism, and this Lynchburg team is still very young when you look at the number of returners they'll get next year. So one more question for you, Kyle. I mean, you're at this part of the season where you still got a few games at home. You have an opportunity to win a few. What's the biggest key to the puzzle for the Lynchburg Hornets?
I think continue to work hard, continue to work on the team tactics, as in, again, knowing when to switch field, knowing when to be a straight line offense, knowing when to pass back. All those things I think are tough for young players, right? And the touches need to be a little bit cleaner for Lynchburg. We saw that in general. I mean, we talked about touch so much for Washington and Lee. Hornets' touch could be just a little bit cleaner. They'll work on that going forward. The talent is definitely there. The talent is definitely there for Lynchburg moving forward. Not just this year, but next. But, hey, nobody's given up on 2025 yet either.
Not at all, and it's going to be a fun rest of the season. Lynchburg returns to action on Wednesday, but they will be on the road in that affair. That game starts at 7 o'clock at Guilford, and then Saturday, October 25th, the next home broadcast versus Bridgewater. Finally, another Saturday home game as it's senior day, 1 p.m. start time on Schellenberger Field. A big thanks to everybody in the LHSN crew all day long for making Homecoming Saturday possible. And, of course, a special thanks to Tobias, Al, Riley, Joe, and Grayson on the production side for today's broadcast. Kyle Haney, as always, was fantastic. Big thanks to you for being on the call. My name is Evan Gates, saying so long from the Hill City.